When actress Joan Crawford died last month, we were told the 71-year-old star died of a heart attack. Now a close friend and neighbor of Ms. Crawford, Doris Lilly, suggests it was no heart attack, that Joan Crawford committed suicide. With Jean and me now is Doris Lilly, a writer who has just published a story in People magazine claiming that Joan Crawford did not die of a heart attack but took her own life on May 10th. Ms. Lilly, what evidence do you have that this is true, that she committed suicide?
Well, I saw a great deal of her in the past, ever since I moved into the same building, I guess the last 18 months. And it was curious to me why she sent her dog away 3 days before she didn't know she was going to die. And she loved that little dog, a little Shih Tzu called Princess. And she used to sign her letters very often, Joan and Princess. And then, of course, she did die on May 10th, 1977. And that was she had married Al Steele May 10th, 1955 at the Flamingo Hotel in Las Vegas. And she often said that was the only man she ever loved. There seemed to be
so that was an anniversary, in other words.
Pardon me?
That was an anniversary then?
Yes, May 10th was her anniversary. And it was just all sort of curious.
The time before that, I read in your article that she was apparently living a very strange, secluded life.
Well, a couple of years ago, she told me that there had been a threat on her life, that somebody had written to her and said they were going to kill her. And a lot of celebrities, that happens to them. I remember once Elvis Presley had a threat on his life in Las Vegas, and he just went out and did a show anyway, and nothing happened. Very often they don't, but Joan was an extremely vulnerable woman. Very easy to frighten. One wouldn't think so, you know, but she was, and she was afraid to go out of the house, and she never went out.
She really never went out?
Never put
For 18 months, she never went out of the house.
She never put her foot out of that apartment. Not once. Not once.
For the last 18 months of her life?
Yes, and it was right after she had called the FBI, she called the police, and they put somebody on the street downstairs to guard her a little bit, but it didn't seem to be enough. I think it was all these things, plus the fact that the scripts weren't coming in, and it had nothing to do with Roz Russell. She adored Roz Russell. There was this party, someone wrote somewhere that she went to this party for Roz Russell, and because she had to share it with Roz, no, not at all. I mean, she was a very generous woman about the other actresses that she worked with of her own era. She was an admirer of Roz, very much so, and she felt very sorry for poor Roz when she died the way she did.
Was she, as you suggest, a cleanliness freak?
Oh, I mean, Doctor's Hospital, surgery at Doctor's Hospital was a pigsty compared to her apartment.
Maybe that's what she's doing the last 18 months, cleaning.
Well, she just cleaned and cleaned. It was just remarkable, the cleanliness. She showed me her closets one day. She had taken a big closet that I use for my coats, because we have the same type of apartment, and she'd cleaned it all out, and she'd taken sets of towels, like the 2 bath towels, the 2 hand towels, and she put them all in plastic. Everything was in plastic. She said, "Look, Doris, now all I have to do is just take this thing out and I can put the and then she had 2 bottles of Mountain Valley water. I noticed in the corner up in the closet. Each one was wrapped in plastic. I mean, she lived by plastic. Oh, and then when she'd have...
Tell about this.
One day...
Stand-up time.
She had a few friends in for a drink. Nice little cocktail thing. And not very many. And so, I felt, well, now I can at least light a cigarette. Normally I was afraid to light a cigarette, although she smoked up until 6 months before she died, and she stopped cold turkey. But I felt like I was sort of a social thing. I could sort of relax a little bit, because most of the time you don't want to sit down in a chair. So I'm sitting like this, and I light a cigarette, and I have the drink. So the ashtray, the coffee table was there, so I would get up like this to do this with my cigarette. While I was up, she fluffs the pillow, and by the time I got back, the ashtray was cleaned out.
I have to ask you, are there other people who feel she committed suicide?
There are a couple, but they won't say so. They thought so when I talked to them before all the publicity. They agreed with me, but now they don't. It seems like I'm almost the only one that thinks this. I mean, that's willing to admit it.
When somebody dies in the city of New York, Isn't there a coroner's report and isn't there an autopsy?
Well, I thought so. I talked to somebody at a big hospital here last week, and they told me that when, if anybody dies, that that there has to be an autopsy unless there was a doctor present, or unless they were in a hospital, of course, but if they die alone and there is no history of grave illness, that an autopsy is performed only to determine if they were murdered or not.
I see.
And
there's no sign of a murder because nobody got in the apartment.
Oh, no. But it's odd that there wasn't an autopsy. That I don't understand. I really will never understand unless those were her wishes, but nevertheless she did die alone. And maybe I shouldn't have written. A lot of people say, why did you write this if you were such a friend of hers? Joan Crawford was admired by millions of people. She was a public figure. If this had been a friend of mine, Joan Schwartz, let's say, I wouldn't have. But the question is going to be asked forever. And I'm a reporter. I feel it was my duty to write it because she was Joan Crawford.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Joan Crawford, no matter exactly how she died, was one of the greatest movie stars of all time, and we will be back.
This video is brought to you by The Concluding Chapter of Crawford, a comprehensive research guide to Joan Crawford. www.theconcludingchapterofcrawford.com. Join us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.